Okay. Apologies. Don't have any apologies so far, unless we haven't any notified yet. No other apologies. Can we move then to agenda item number 2, which is the draft minutes of the meeting held on the 20th of February 2014. These are at page 5. Can I ask members if they are content with the detail of the minutes and accuracy of those minutes are contained at page 5? Agreed?
Great.
Okay.
The only thing was,
Yes, Sam.
the last session, I'm not recorded has been there, and I thought he was there, maybe.
Sorry, which bit's that now?
Where we out of the very end of the minutes. Is it the minutes we're talking about?
Private session on the
The
report.
private session on it all.
Right.
I stayed for part of it.
What?
I was here for part of it.
Right.
Although I don't need it because there was nothing decided.
Right.
But then
I'll check that for accuracy. Yeah. Back next week.
That's grand, Jim. Thank you. Okay. Right, so that suggested amendment checked out for accuracy, and everybody okay with the rest of the minutes, the content detail? That's grand, thank you. Now, in relation to the chairperson's business, there's a revised agenda which has been tabled today, so if members are content with that revised agenda. In regard to the proposed changes to the NIRO, tabled today is also correspondence from Lightsource regarding the proposed changes to the NIRO for ground-mounted solar PV and the whole issue that we had around the ROCs issue. We have, as far as I know, a briefing session from the department scheduled at some stage as well. However, if members are content that we receive a briefing from Lightsource about the implications, so do we hear from the industry, because I don't really think maybe we were that well informed on the previous occasion by the department. So members agreed that we have a briefing from Lightsource at some stage.
Great.
Okay, thank you for that.
Sorry, Chair, is that a formal briefing at a committee meeting? Yes,
Well, we can-
is getting it scheduled.
Right.
So members.
But if we can reschedule for maybe a Tuesday over lunchtime, would members be content with that approach?
Great.
Like half an hour. And
Can I ask just because I was looking at a forward work programme, but when are the department back up on the issue on the rocks for the solar?
I don't know.
That has yet to be scheduled.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So,
Chair, could I just stick my neck out here and say, if you're having it on Tuesday at lunchtime, could you leave it till 10 to 1, because I have business coming out at 12:30. It only takes.
well, we'll work it
15
around 1
minutes.
o'clock,
The
sure.
only issue I had a keen interest in this, and again my DARD committee meets on Tuesdays. Only
Is it at 1:30, Paul?
half one usually from.
Well, sure, if we had the meeting round about 1 o'clock, and maybe we bite to you beforehand, facilitate people around about quarter to 2.
Can't be hard to prepare for a time.
Okay, we'll get that sorted, so. All right, Sandra.
Appreciate that.
What they said. You're good.
Okay, now we move to the oral briefing from Jetty on Credit Union and Industrial and Provident Societies Bill, and the papers for this item are included at page 86, where we have the clerk summary of consultation responses, and the full consultation responses will be included in members' bill folder when the bill is at full committee stages. So we have with us here today Jackie Kerr, Head of Business Regulation Division, and Marie Turner, Deputy Principal in Company Law. So thank you very, very much indeed for being with us here today. It's good to see you. So perhaps you know the format, you've been here before, so if you could take up to 10 minutes and give us, if you like, a succinct analysis of where you are with the department, and then we'll have a question and answer session with members, okay?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I thought it'd be useful just to give you a very quick update on progress since we last came to the committee, which was in December 2012 on this policy proposal and the legislative proposals. In the period since that, we'd started a process of pre-consultation at that time with relevant stakeholders in relation to the basic outline of what the bill would address, or what we were proposing the bill would address. And that continued into early 2013. Now, that pre-consultation, some of the stakeholders we met with included the 3 trade bodies for the credit union movement, a number of individual credit unions as well, the Financial Services Authority, as it was at that time, Treasury, the Northern Ireland Cooperative Forum, the Northern Ireland Federation of Housing Associations, the Central Bank of Ireland and the Department of Finance in the Republic of Ireland as well. As the committee is aware, following executive proposal of the consultation, the public consultation on the bill went ahead in June 2013. And during the consultation period, there were 3 public meetings held. They were held in Downpatrick, Cookstown and Ballymena, and they were open to everyone and they were quite well attended. And it was very useful discussion. It was very informative for the process itself of pulling together the proposals. Mid-September, the consultation closed and there were 37 responses received to that. And what became apparent at that time is there were some differing positions on some of the proposals among the trade bodies. So we thought it was useful at that time to bring the bodies together and just talk through the various positions on these issues, just to try and explore that a bit further. And that was used to further inform the policy process, and it's been taken into account and reflective in the proposals that are with the committee now. It was useful just in some to actually help clarify some of the points of concern that were raised by the trade bodies. In December, the committee received the proposals as they stand at this point in time, reflective of that consultation process. And you've also received details of who responded as part of the process itself. So the timetable now that we're moving forward with is still working on a timetable of the bill being introduced to the Assembly in June this year, before the summer recess, but that's obviously subject to the approval processes of the Executive and the committee consideration stages. So there are 19 distinct proposals that were consulted on, and it might be useful if members perhaps would find it more useful to actually specifically address any issues that you'd like further clarification on, rather than us maybe going through all 19 in detail at this point, but whatever you think would be most useful.
That's grand, thanks very
Thank
much. Probably a lot of this will be drawn out during the question session anyway. So I have first person up is Mr. McLaughlin Mitchell.
Thank you, and thank you very much. I'm interested in the removal of the restriction on non-qualifying members of credit unions, and paragraph, I think, 46 of the Department's proposal states that the 10% limit on non-qualifying members is to be removed. What is the rationale in terms of that recommendation, as opposed to the, I suppose, the original rationale for putting in a protection on a protective limit? I suppose people were thinking of entryism and caucuses operating and policy decisions, but the Department's view of all of that and protecting the sector.
Okay, Marie, do you want to comment on that?
Yes, what we're looking at here is that life over the last number of years has changed, and people are moving about more, and that this would enable credit unions to maintain that community link. That they're not. This will be enabling legislation. They don't have to introduce this if they don't want to in their rules. But it was thought that there's a lot of people who want to maintain that link with the credit union they've started with, and that by bringing this in, that will enable them to do so.
Yes, and I can understand that. But does it open up the possibility of a controlling caucus emerging, either, as a result of the removal of any upper limit, and people maybe operating on a common agenda, or?
The risk of that is considered to be minimal, and as Maria said, this is an enabling provision anyway. A credit union can use its own discretion. It doesn't have to apply this within its own rule book. It could decide to maintain the current limit on membership, but it's reflective more of just society now, that there's much more mobility in terms of people moving elsewhere in terms of jobs and so on, and it is the core of it is that original ethos and that community ownership of the credit unions. But we considered that the risk of it being used for other ulterior motives was minimal.
I actually can understand, you know, what you're saying, particularly if people maybe over a period of years have built up savings, and switching within credit unions isn't the kind of seamless exercise that it might be with, say, a bank. Have they formally responded to the proposition that, in fact, the limit could be removed?
Yeah. What would Maria have
Yes, they
details
were.
on the actual
Yes,
response?
they were in favour of it. 66% of respondents favoured.
Yeah, and no variation on the threshold, just simply that it could be removed at the
Yes.
discretion of a
Yes.
Yes, it
Yeah.
can be removed, or the credit union can set whatever threshold that it wishes to. They're been given that freedom to do so.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. Thanks very much.
Mr McKinney, Virgo.
Thank you both. Can I just refer to the issue of deferred shares, which you've accepted in terms of the consultation? If a member of a credit union holds deferred shares and wants to transfer them, does the person to whom the shares are transferred have to meet the common bond?
I couldn't honestly give you. You're saying if
If I have some deferred shares and I wanted to transfer them to a colleague or a family member, does that family member have to share the common bond?
well, the deferred share is within that particular credit union. So the common bond would have to exist. I don't think I'm altogether sure.
Yeah, okay. Well,
What
that's important then just to tease out. And maybe worthwhile investigating it further whether
Yes.
that link must travel with the share. And importantly also on death, if somebody owned shares, deferred shares, does the person who inherits have to
Right.
abide by the common bond principle or have in some way? It's the same point.
Yes.
That the common
Yes,
bond
actually,
travels.
what happens to
Yeah.
deferred shares?
Well, it's
being a
not so much.
member?
That's right.
Although,
Does the person who receives them have to abide by or be associated with the common bond?
Can we just clarify, deferred shares, are they only relevant to corporate members as opposed to individual
well,
members?
anyone could have deferred shares, but we're envisaging that most people who would enter into deferred shares would be more likely to be corporate members. So if,
But the inheritance situation would still apply, wouldn't it?
well, if it was a corporate member, then they belong to that corporate.
Deferred shares can't be transferred from one member to another, is that? We can come back and clarify this
Yeah.
point, but I think the understanding is that they can't be transferred from one member to another. But we'll come back and clarify that for you. But the point
Yes.
that Marie made as well, the transfer would be within that credit union anyway, so the credit union
What would
has its
happen?
common bond, so
If they can't be transferred, what would happen to property on death?
we'll come
Like
back,
what-
Yes.
we'll clarify
We'll
that.
clarify
We'll
that.
get you a legal opinion on that, just
Okay,
to
thank you.
be 100% sure on it. So.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Virgo. Mr Dunn, Gordon.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks very much for coming in this morning to give us this presentation. Just a couple of issues in relation to the abolishing the minimum age for membership and the minimum age for becoming an officer. In relation to credit unions, the department are reluctant to move on those issues, and yet in relation to industrial and provident societies, there seems to be flexibility from the department. Can you clarify why this is the case?
That's reflective of the outcome of the consultation. There wasn't a desire for that proposal to proceed in relation to credit unions, but in respect of industrial and provident societies, there was, a strong response saying that they would be content with that. So the different position for the two types of organisation are reflective of the response that we received to the consultation itself.
So there's no big demand, you're saying?
For the credit unions, yeah. Mm-hmm. Have you the statistic in terms of what the...
It was quite close, at more or less 50-50. But in reaching our decision, we took into consideration that an industrial and provident society is very different entity than a credit union, where the credit union is looking after money. A lot of issues there that perhaps it's better leaving the age limit where it is at the moment. With regard to the legislation on GB, which this is broadly based on, their legislation differs in ours, that the main impetus there was to introduce this for industrial and provident societies, but more by default than design, it also then applied to credit unions because of the way their primary legislation is formed, whereas we're different here with two very distinct pieces of legislation.
Yeah, well,
But in the round and balancing everything as it stood, we thought it was better to maintain it for credit unions as it stands. Although a lot of the respondents said that they would favour it, it was also tempered with as long as it's enabling. So although they were saying yes, we're saying we probably wouldn't use it.
but surely on the age, and limit for membership, they're trying to modernise the credit union, they're trying to broaden out and attract more younger members, and to make it, I suppose, something that families engage in.
Yes.
And if you're engaged in, it's like any savings plan, you're engaged in young, or your parents introduce you to it, you're likely to stick with it. So I think, is that something that needs to be looked at? I think it's something perhaps we should, encourage. Try and, at the end of the day, they realise they've got to move on. If they don't, credit unions are going to effectively struggle.
Well, with regard to membership, credit unions have the ability there to open juvenile accounts, which young people have access to then. The facility does exist.
The credit
At the
union,
moment.
credit union movement is actually quite active in schools in encouraging children to open accounts with them. So there are juvenile accounts, and the movement itself would encourage children and young people to.
But they're not
open
active.
accounts.
They're not active members.
They're not members. No, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks very much. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks very much, Gordon. Just to get back to the deferred shares bit, I'm reading here from Proposal 7, paragraph 56. Deferred shares would be transferable, but would not be withdrawable, and would not be covered by the Financial Services Compensation Scheme. Can you expand on that for me a wee bit, please? I don't understand that, what that means in practice.
Okay, Marie.
Well, they're not transferable and would not be withdrawable. They're not covered. So if someone was to...
Sorry, it says here deferred shares would be transferable.
Right, they're transferable but not withdrawable.
Right.
They're not covered by the normal compensation scheme that ordinary shares would be in the
Yes.
credit union, so they're not subject to that. So obviously there's more of a risk involved with deferred shares. As Jackie was saying earlier, it's foreseen really that deferred shares would be taken up more by corporate bodies and individuals.
Why would that be? Just can you explain that to me? I'm asking because I don't know. Why should that situation be?
When you would when you would buy deferred shares, you've no really you can't withdraw them. So it would be highly unlikely that an individual really would.
Sorry, can you explain to me why it would be corporate would be more interested or more likely to avail of those than individual?
Because you really don't get anything back for a deferred. You're investing into the credit union.
Yeah, I know why.
And that money goes to its reserves.
Yes.
But it's totally different than investing in saving money.
If there was a situation that the credit union was dissolved or became insolvent in any way, there's actually greater protection for the ordinary members, and that they would have greater protection in relation to the recovery of their investment,
Yes.
whereas the deferred shares would not be seen as one of the primary creditors in terms of, you know, the redistribution of any assets in terms of winding up.
Why should the corporate, as opposed to the individual, be more likely to avail of those deferred shares? I'm not getting that bit.
I think we need to clarify. I think it's more that the credit union itself, it's the discretion more in its part in terms of if it admits a corporate member, it would allow to have deferred shares. I don't think it's that the corporate body would choose, you know, that it would be its preference. But we'll come back. I think there's a couple of legal points we'll just also, in terms of Mr McKinney's questions, just get
thank you
clarified
for
for
that.
you, and we'll come back with a more comprehensive response on that particular issue.
Thank you. Mr. Frew. Paul.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I want to put you over the proposal number 11, which was to consider an increase on the 1% per month interest rate cap. Again, as I read that, to me that would tell me that's actually quite a good thing, that it would actually give credit unions a lot of flexibility to, I suppose, compete and target against the practices of payday loans. But it seems to be the case that only 30% of response were either in favour of or did not object to. What was the real fault line there between rejection and being approval of that proposal?
The credit union movement, the ethos of that is for cheap lending, and especially at the events we held, it came across very strongly that the members were definitely not in favour of this proposal, because they thought it would cast credit unions in a bad light, even though this is an enabling provision, and not all credit unions would have to buy into it and increase the interest rate. They thought even if a few did that, but obviously then it would put them in a bad light.
But surely, as you've said, it's only really increasing the capacity for them to do it. It's not. They don't actually have to do it.
That's right.
They don't.
And surely the two federations could have even made a corporate decision to do it or not. Would that not have been the case?
Really, there was no appetite for this at all. They did not want it to happen, and we in this bill are very much trying to reflect what the movement wanted.
Is that the case? Do both federations say the same?
They were they came to agreement on the understanding that if the interest rate if they feel that it's better for them that the interest rate rises, that we should be able to take that forward in subordinate legislation. So obviously that's a much quicker method than primary legislation that we're looking at the moment. And they were happy with that we could then do a very quick consultation and bring a change in very quickly. Will that be reviewed on a period of time, or will it be left to the credit unions to actually come towards the Parliament to suggest that? We can do either. We can either review it. It was put to the credit unions that if they feel the need is there for it, to come to us right away, and we'll organise a consultation and consult with the membership, and it can be introduced very quickly. We are in contact with the Irish League and the Ulster Federation of Credit Unions, so I think if anything was to arise, then we would be made very quickly aware of it.
Last question, Chair. Hopefully. With regards to the capacity, with regards to the strength of the credit union movement and an increase to 3% from 1% in an interest rate, how will that increase the capacity of the credit unions, and what more could they deliver with that additional revenue?
That would really be for the credit union movement itself to respond to. the debate this week as well, touched on some of these issues. The change, some of the reform that's taken place over the last few years, including the transfer of regulation to the FCA and PRA, gives the credit unions much greater flexibility in terms of the type of services that they can offer, subject to getting approval from the regulatory body. The financial decisions underpinning that would be for individual credit unions to take themselves. Obviously, anything that would generate additional revenue obviously gives them greater potential and greater scope, but we wouldn't really be in a position to comment what the actual impact of this interest rate, what that would mean on the ground for the credit union.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Mr. Douglas, Sammy.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you our two colleagues for coming along. Could I ask you a question in relation to the investment in community development? And if I can read this. In relation to the various types of social, cultural and charitable groups that would be eligible. So could you maybe explain a wee bit more with those types of groups?
Well, the legislation actually will be phrased in that way, so it will be up to the individual credit union then to decide what groups they would want to allocate any of their surplus to.
But for me, I was thinking along in terms of, say, likes of church-based organisations. Would they be eligible? Because I know for some of the charitable trusts, they can fund religious groups, as an example. And you know yourself that some of those groups, for their own religious reasons, wouldn't take lottery money, or wouldn't get lottery support. They wouldn't ask for lottery support.
Yes.
So could you maybe just check that one out? Because obviously there's a huge range of church-based activity right across Northern Ireland.
Yeah. I would say that, but because it's primary legislation that we're looking at here, we wouldn't prescribe that in the legislation.
No.
But certainly we can check your point out.
Okay, thanks, Ray. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Anderson, Sydney, you'd agree.
Thank you for the presentation, Chair. I just want to touch on the issue of the dissolution of the credit union. I note there at present that it sits at three quarters of the members of the society would have to agree that and prepare that, what they call it, an instrument of dissolution. Is that an issue, a big issue, really? Why was that brought forward as an issue, and finally to say you don't agree with it? Is there an issue there with that?
Well, it was brought together with the Industrial and Providence Societies as well. You know, obviously this bill is dealing with both. So there was, this was included on behalf of the credit unions and also for the Industrial and Providence Societies. And the credit union movement had really not a great deal of interest in this, which is why then we're not taking that forward.
Yeah, I note that the two main credit union bodies are at variance, the Irish League and the Ulster Federation, but you appear then got agreement not to take this forward.
I think the main concern was that you know, there was potential for abuse there, that you might dilute the dissolution procedure so much that it would become too easy. And in speaking to the two trade bodies, they weren't aware of any problems within Northern Ireland with regard to dissolution. So there didn't seem to be point then in changing what is already there.
So they're quite happy to leave it as is.
We're happy to leave it as it is.
But really all I'm trying to get around here, it wasn't really a big issue. What's it like in, say, the credit unions in the UK? Is there an issue there? Or what's their position in the United Kingdom when they...
I honestly couldn't answer that.
Although the starting point for this legislation,
I'm just
obviously,
wondering why
was,
this actually raised this.
Yes.
The reason that what we've done, the starting point was the legislative changes in Great Britain and the committee's report itself in terms of recommendations. That was the starting point for the legislative process. So some of the, the proposals, are suggesting, do we replicate what has happened and what's been legislated for in GB. And, you know, in that one particular one, there wasn't an appetite for it from the credit union movement. With the industrial and province societies, it's different. That's why there's slightly different
Do
positions.
we have any evidence of those credit unions who, in the past, have had to dissolve, that it was a big issue because of the 3/4 of signatures required?
I'm not aware of any issues.
No,
now.
we asked the trade bodies was there a problem, and they couldn't think of any issues at all around it.
And really, one of the Irish League there, I think I was reading it, they had concerns maybe that it could be abused if we went down the line there.
Yes, if you make it too easy.
The Federation, Ulster Federation, really weren't too concerned about that, but at the end of the day, they've reached agreement and just leave it as is.
Leave it as it is. There again, with regard to the industrial and providence societies, they have to be dormant to go down this road, so there's more of a control there because the society is dormant anyway.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Mrs. O'Brien, Sandra.
Thanks very much, Chair. I was just wanting to ask about the interest-bearing shares and the decision to allow credit unions to offer interest-bearing shares and dividend-bearing shares. Could you enlighten us as the process of that decision and how is it a sensible decision to have like a hierarchy of shareholders?
Well, the interest-bearing shares, we thought it's a positive approach because the person knows when they invest in the credit union what return they're going to have on that money. So it puts them on an even keel with building societies or banks. They know from day one it's a contractual rate of interest that they'll receive in the money. It may not be something that the credit unions are particularly interested in, but see that there is a point to having it there in the legislation. It gives them, there's opportunities there, rather than just paying a dividend.
And is the legislation then gone into the detail of the priorities between the two then?
Well, the legislation will go into the detail of what the credit union financially has to go to the regulator with regard to what their assets are, what their resources are, and what audit controls have to be in position to allow them to do this.
And what about the detail of having to hold a certain number of ordinary dividend-bearing shares before they're allowed to hold the interest-bearing shares? Is that?
It will be up to the individual. The individual credit union can then put that in its rules rather than us prescribe it in legislation. So it will be up to the individual credit unions to set that themselves.
And you think that's the best way of doing it rather than through legislation?
Well, it gives them the freedom to set that in their own rules, because whatever number would maybe be proper to one credit union might be different for another, depending on the size of the credit union. And we have checked that out with the regulator, and it can be stipulated in the rules.
Okay, thank you for that. So, just one other question, if I could, in regard to credit union charging for provision of copy of the rules to ensure members get the free copy, all that type of stuff. But do you feel that credit unions themselves should be required or could be required to provide free copies of the rules electronically, either on the web or by email?
Yes, we don't see an issue with that because it doesn't stipulate in the legislation how those rules have to be conveyed to members.
All right, so they could do that free if they so desired as a credit union, if the credit union had a website or was well teed up electronically.
yes, we don't see a problem with it.
Ah, right, okay, thank you for that. Right, that's grand. There are a number of questions, a number of further questions that we have. We maybe don't open fully into today, so would you be content enough to respond to those in writing, please?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, and obviously come back to us. There have been a few issues bordering on legal and the likes that you're going to come
Yes.
back to us on anyway. Okay, thanks very much indeed
Thank
for your
you.
time. Okay. Now then we move to an oral briefing from the North-South Steering Group on Horizon 2020. We'll just move to page 13 on that. Well, I hope the officials are there. Don't need to be lit for 2014, let alone 2020. Take it, can we check that they're there, can we? All right, okay. I'm all right, thanks. Oh, well.
You're the one that said it's not.
It's away with it. That wasn't. Spray of tile on with it.
Right, what we'll do is, if they're not there, yes, they're there. Okay. What we have, and this is an item, as we know, members, the committee has spent a considerable body of time on, and a lot of interest on as well. So, what we have at page 13, we have the clerk's brief, the Northern Ireland Action Plan 2013 for Horizon 2020. The Irish strategy and target for participation in Horizon 2020, 2014-2020, an Assembly research paper on 20 visit to Dublin and Enterprise Ireland Horizon 2020 launch, presentation from the Intertrade Ireland website on access to Horizon 2020, and correspondence, as we referred to earlier, from Pure Marine following the committee meeting and visit to the Northern Ireland Science Park. And with us here today, we have Aidan Gough from Intertrade Ireland, Mr. Kieran McGarty from DETI, and Simon Grattan from DETI as well. So you're welcome to the meeting. Obviously, we have encountered some of you before and met some of you and worked very closely indeed with some of you to good product. So it's an issue which the committee, I'm sure you've been appraised of now, has focused quite a bit on. So we're looking to yourselves here today. Clearly, we've been to Dublin. We've seen how they do things in Dublin. Issues have come up around the comparative drawdown with the North. Issues have come up around the efficiency of how things are being done in one jurisdiction on the island and maybe been done up until now less well in the North. So there are challenges right there. There are opportunities. It's the opportunities we're looking at. So the committee here today, you've been appraised of the format of the committee, up to 10 minutes to present, and then we'll have a Q&A session from members. We have quite an extensive bit of comprehensive questioning to go with here today. We may get through it all, we may not, but we'll anticipate then that any other questions we have will be answered in writing as well. So I'm not sure who's doing the lead here today. Is yourself, Ian? No, good. And I would just like to publicly say that my experience with Intertrade Ireland has been a very good one. Met yourselves on a number of occasions and been down for presentations, so I wish you well in your endeavours there too. So.
Thank you, Chairman, members. I'm going to talk just briefly just about the progress in North-South collaboration and the participation in FP7 and the structures that are now in place to avail of the opportunities provided by Horizon 2020. And it will be specifically on the North-South element, because that is our role. So briefly, I mean, Intertrade Ireland's involvement in the Area Framework Programme 7 and now going forward into Horizon 2020 begun with a meeting of our two ministers at the North-South Ministerial Council, which the European Commissioner Moira Geoghegan-Quinn also attended. As a result of that meeting, Intertrade Ireland was asked to take steps to try and increase the extent of North-South collaboration to avail of the opportunities there. And after that meeting, we convened, and we still chair, an all-island steering group for Horizon 2020, which comprises members from government departments, North and South, and the agencies, North and South, that run the support networks, Invest Northern Ireland and Enterprise Ireland. There are also representatives from the North-South Ministerial Council and from the European Commission. There has been a close interaction with that steering group. It meets approximately 3 times a year, and there has been, apart from the, as we'll go through, the performance that it has delivered, as you can see, there has been a step change in the performance and in the number of North-South applications. We'll come to that. But it has also served as a great focus of for knowledge exchange. Particularly Northern Ireland has benefited from the learnings and from the experience that has taken place in the South, and there was also the evidence of their investment in the structures, which has benefited and helped the North make the case and develop the structures that are now in place. So it has been, apart from the actual practical delivery of the schemes and programmes we run, it has been a good forum for knowledge exchange and knowledge transfer. One of the first actions from the All-Ireland Steering Group was to organise a conference around the opportunities to participate in Framework Programme 7. And we called this, it was under the banner of Collaborate to Innovate. Since 2011, Intertrade Ireland has hosted the conference on an annual basis, and the 2013 event, which was entitled and focused on the new opportunities from Horizon 2020, it was called Access Horizon 2020, attracted over 270 delegates from across the island, north and south. We held that conference in Croke Park, and it was a fantastic network opportunity, and there was a great mix of researchers and businesses from Northern Ireland and from Ireland. The 2014 conference is currently in planning, and it will be the topic of the next All-Ireland Steering Group meeting, and details of that can be provided in invitations, of course, to the committee when it's finalised. The events, as I say, provide a real opportunity for researchers to find new partners and also to learn more about the programmes and the support structures that are available to them. We also run a series of focus-on events, and again, all our events are focused on bringing Northern Ireland and Irish researchers together. So the Focus on Events series was devised to examine in more detail a specific area of a wider call. So they're focused on a call that's coming out from the European Commission. The first event concentrated on the cancer elements of the health calls within FP7, and by doing this, more information can be targeted to the researchers, and the networking opportunities are made all the more valuable because we've key experts within each area in Northern Ireland and Ireland coming together in attendance. To date, we've ran 3 focus on regarding Horizon 2020. We've had 3 focus on events have been held already. The first one was on societal challenges and specifically on the agri-food. We had another one on health, and we had one quite recently there on ICT security. There's also been another event on the Marie Curie programme. All the events have been oversubscribed, and each, we had about 50, 60 people at each event, so they've all been oversubscribed, and the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. The most recent event there, which was in Belfast, just to show the level of engagement that is now taking place, we had the event in Belfast. It was on the Marie Curie initiative. About 40% of the participants at that were from Ireland. So it shows you the extent of the traction that is taking place. No, from Ireland, from the Republic of Ireland, yes. Right. So there is a real engagement now and a real willingness to engage that we think, we can really avail of in terms of availing of the opportunities in Horizon 2020. We are at a different place now than we were when we began, when the FP7 programme began. there's a much closer level of engagement. So we Intertrade Ireland also make available travel supports to encourage North-South researchers to meet up. So not just do we make the links, that we then facilitate the links. There's also support through what we call an EU travel voucher to assist an existing North-South partnership or a North-South partnership that has come together to travel and meet other European partners. Demand for both schemes has been high and shows that the potential participants in FP7 and now moving forward into Horizon 2020 are responding to the new opportunities that have been presented to them. In 2013, for example, we issued about 60 of these vouchers. Awareness raising is obviously a critical element of the Intertrade Ireland role in this area, and the focus of the work we have now focused most of this work on a recently launched app. We've also supported by a website, and there's periodic newsletters and an advisory service. The Horizon 2020 app can be accessed via our website, or it can be downloaded on any Apple or Android device. In that, you register a research profile on the app. Users can therefore find partners, they can make connections, identify new opportunities, because it keeps you up to date with any calls that are coming out from Europe, and generally just stay informed and also access all the support they need, because all the support services that are available on the island, north and south, are also can be found on the app. The app was launched there just before Christmas. We've already over about 350 registered users, and interestingly enough, 51% of these are from industry, which is we find there's a real level of interest from industry now in Horizon 2020 that probably wasn't there at the beginning of FP7. And while there's a level of interest, there's maybe a lack of knowledge of just how to go about it. So that's what we're trying to facilitate. So the launch of the app has been very successful. As I said, we also have a newsletter which is periodically produced just to inform and update potential applicants on activity in the area and any upcoming events. All this is done through the All Island Steering Group, so that there's no duplication of anything we're doing with what is going on in either jurisdiction. Let's see. As I say, we also have an advisory service which offers help in identifying partners and advice related to project ideas, and then we a signposting service where we signpost to the Northern Ireland network of contact points, or to the economic advisor or the European advisors network in the south. So to date, under Framework Programme 7, the total drawdown, this is till the 1st of July 2013, for collaborative North-South applications was €80.5 million, and that's distributed across 89 successful North-South projects. The top 5 areas for North-South collaboration are in health, ICT, agri-food, security, and in the Marie Curie Actions Programme. In total, there were 360 North-South applications between 2007 and 2013, and 89 of these were successful. That success rate at 25% nearly is above the EU average success rate for applications. €20 million of this funding was achieved between July 2012 and July 2013, which is evidence again of what we are finding is that there is now a much with the structures in place and the interest that has been generated, there is now a much greater willingness to engage between the research communities north and south. So we feel we're on a very firm footing to achieve higher drawdown in Horizon 2020. The statistics, as I said, demonstrate the significant positive impact achieved on the North-South activity since 2010, since the two ministers asked us to get involved at the North-South Ministerial Council meeting. For instance, 116 applications were received or made in the 3-year period 07 to 10, and this figure has more than doubled to 244 applications in the period 2010 to 2013. 100 applications were received in the last year alone, in July 2012 to July 2013. So going forward, we're obviously continuing the good work of the All-Ireland Steering Group to develop and promote this significant area for collaborative research and development and innovation. We're looking to continue with the Collaborate to Innovate events. We're also working on a more strategic approach to Horizon 2020 and bringing all the initiatives that we have together and setting targets now for north-south drawdown in the period of Horizon 2020. That's on the agenda for the next meeting of the All-Ireland Steering Group. The action will obviously set out all the supports that we intend to employ to assist the applicants, and I can't see it being that different from what we're doing at the minute. It's in many respects it's not difficult. You know, it's not a difficult thing. You're just identifying partners, facilitating their engagement, and helping them to make the applications. So I can't see there being much change in the support structures that we have available. Again, given the success that there's been. So this plan will set out set the tone for our future events, and also for the information that we're going to provide. We'll also be looking at the cross-cutting nature area of social sciences within Horizon 2020, because that's an area that has been given some greater importance in Horizon 2020, and we'll continue to support in that area. We do have a social science researcher guide, which is providing an ideal way for those not familiar with social sciences to see how they can add value to their projects, and also help them find a partner in areas that are relevant to them. In conclusion, I suppose that the statistics are there showing that we have made a positive contribution to this important area in a relatively short period of time, and it has been done with, and couldn't have been done otherwise, without the support of the various agencies and the departments through the North-South Steering Group. I think I'll just leave it there.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Aidan. Just a couple of things, just picking up on what you said, and then we'll move over to the other strategic stuff. You mentioned there 80.5 million FP7, 80.5 million euros by FP7. Those were on collaborative projects on both parts of Ireland, right? How much money has been drawn down through FP7 in collaboration with other regions of the EU? That's the first thing. Second thing is then, in regard to the steering group, it's almost for us as elected representatives here, it's something that happens way over there, and we periodically hear something about it having happened. I presume the strategic outcomes, the products and stuff, which I'm not saying aren't happening, clearly it has added, maybe in more recent times, somewhat more of a focus than could have been up until that point. The strategic outcomes, the objectives, the products from those meetings, where are they shared? It's just it'd be helpful to us as a committee to make sure that, and be assured that the work that we have put in as a committee, including previous reports and inquiries into this and visits to Brussels and the likes, that's shared with us so that we know exactly what's happening. And secondly, that we too we're out there, we're elected representatives, we're bumping into business people, we're bumping into people with projects, that we too are in a position best placed to do that. And coincidentally, I have downloaded the app and I find it very useful. Now, secondly, and this probably isn't a question for you, this is a question for the department. I see the Horizon 2020 action plan for Northern Ireland here had a number of specific actions in it. It would be helpful if we as a committee heard progress on those actions. There's been timetables set for them. Some of them are obvious, one or two of them are ongoing, but there are a number of them there. If we had an update as to progress on those, a number of them are surely completed now, including an analysis of the success or lack of the FP7 project over this last number of years. So that would be helpful to us as well if we had that. Part of the problem with this has been lack of communication, lack of information, lack of detail as to what actually is happening out there. Now, we pick up on events. I attended the one in procurement, great event up in the Ramada, but I kind of picked up on it as opposed to anything else. So the strategic stuff that you're involved in, the All-Ireland Working Group, updates as to what product and strategic push is coming from that. And then secondly, the departmental action plan to benchmark what progress has been made on that.
I'll take one of the questions there at least. How we report the work of the All Ireland Steering Group, I think was it what you were looking to. We report to the North-South Ministerial Council.
Yes.
And that's right, and we regularly update the two ministers there when we're asked for the progress in terms of the steering group. So we monitor, as you see, I've given you the statistics there, so you can see the value of the cooperation in terms of the number of applications increasing, and the actual drawdown is increasing, and it's increasing quite substantially. So that's how we report, and of course we have had close engagement with the committee here, and they're willing to continue that whenever requested to brief. In terms of sharing,
just we could say, so there's a void there. Just doesn't have to be you. If it's reported back to the department we would hope is wanting to share progress with the rest of us, indeed the wider world. So that's an issue there to be rectified at department through to the committee here. But sorry, please continue.
Okay, I mean, in terms of making sure that you're aware of all the events, I know that the steering group is going to be looking at establishing a calendar, some sort of calendar of all the events. So, and this will be on a north-south basis, because there is close engagement between the two networks now. So, I mean, if we can get that calendar sorted out, we can make sure that it's available to everybody on the committee. The other questions about the funding from other regions, the total drawdown.
Yeah.
Simon?
I mean, it depends. Sorry, just on exactly what you're asking. I mean,
Well, I'll tell you what I'm asking, just so that I'm very clear on it. Is we've heard there the 80.5 million drawdown in association with the rest of the end, it being another member state. What I'm trying to establish is what's the parallel, what drawdown has there been between ourselves here, firms or projects associated with the North here, and other member states, other regions of the EU.
Sure.
That's what I'm trying to establish.
I mean, in terms of the projects, there's been. The issue is, I guess, whether you're regarding the whole project amount, the total project amount that has been drawn down, because those projects will be more than just north-south projects. They'll maybe have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 partners within them, so they'll be wider than just north-south.
No, that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
What element?
I don't have at the minute. I can certainly get you that figure for the total project value is of each of those projects and what then that relates to. We don't have that at the minute, but certainly can get you it.
What we do know, and Simon can correct me here, the total for Northern Ireland is drawdown is around 63.
As of July, which is the equivalent period, there the total value was 63.5, whereas we recently got the November stat, which is just shy of 80, so 79.9 million euros as of November 2013. But the figures that Ian's referring to are July 13, so the like for like on that is.
Of that 63 million, roughly 30%. Is accounted for by North-South Collaborative initiatives.
Yes.
So it's an important.
And just so that I'm very, very specific, Mr. Grattan, because we want to get specific on this. On the collaborative stuff in other parts of the EU, what percentage or what amount of that was of actual tangible financial benefit to the North here in terms of the amount?
Yep.
So there could be a collaborative project, and I appreciate and I hear what you're saying entirely. Thank you for that. Then the other item, the action plans, or action plan, the update on it. I appreciate this isn't your bailiwick. Who's?
Yeah, if the committee's happy, we can provide a written report back to the committee on progress against each of these actions. We're happy to go through the actions now and
I think
share
that
with
would
you.
be more helpful. We have the precise detail then. So, thank you. Now I have Mr. Dunn, Gordon.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks very much, gentlemen, for coming in, making your presentation. In relation to the Northern Ireland Action Plan, the Chairman has already mentioned about the various actions. Action 5 talks about SMEs and how we're going to roll out the whole structure of Horizon 2020 in relation to SMEs. Can you perhaps develop further how you propose to do that? And maybe that's one for Simon. I think we welcome Simon to the committee. He's a man we've heard a lot about,
over the last year or so, and the work that he's doing and the role that he now has. I understand do you come in under Detty now, is that the case? In relation to this Horizon 2020?
Yes, on Horizon 2020, yes.
So perhaps you could elaborate on that as well. But how are we going to ensure that the SMEs, first of all, are aware of the programmes? And how are we going to engage with them and develop their applications? Because we certainly know from out and about that people were extremely concerned about the details of how they were going to set up partnering and so on. And a lot didn't go there because they're too busy, first of all, doing their day job, keeping the lights on and getting on with work and trying to develop markets. But to go down the road of having to engage with partners, I think was a big issue. Is that still going to be the case? So I would appreciate your feedback on that, on those various issues and how we're going to make sure the SMEs are engaged. And just finally, we had a businessman in here just a few weeks ago who has a considerable renewables business. He has about 50 people employed and is progressing. Talking to him afterwards, first time I had heard about the 2020 programme, Horizon 2020, was here. So there's a big message, and we need to make sure that gets out there.
Sure, yeah. I think just to refer back to the comment you made in the action plan, the reference there was to appointing a contact point for SMEs, specifically for SMEs, and that's a role that under the that contact point network, Invest and I have taken on that role, and so there are 2 or 3 folks out here working specifically for SMEs and the SME programmes underneath Horizon 2020, and given that the prominence that the Commission continues to put on SMEs, not only in actually ring-fencing elements of budget, they're talking about ring-fencing of 20% of the second 2 pillars being the industrial leadership and the societal challenges. 20% of that budget is going to go to SMEs, but also the fact that they've introduced as a new introduction into Horizon 2020 the SME instrument, which again is a very new concept for people, and it's a shift which initially sounded like it was going to be a replacement for a programme that was under FP7, but is actually quite different to it. So there's a lot for people to try and pick up and to catch up on, to try and work out how this might fit for them and their business. Add on top of that, from a Northern Ireland perspective, we have the added benefit that one of the people from Invest and I is actually now a national contact point in the UK as well. Joanne Coyle is taking on that role, so that obviously gives us greater access as well to not only the support mechanisms there, but also to the Commission in terms of their activities in relation to SME. So that's a real positive that we have to take on. I would say as well, though, the key point really from the action plan as well is that all of the contact points across all of the areas are tasked with engaging with SMEs as well. So it is not purely just left to Invest and I to take on that role, but it's a collaborative effort between them to make sure that people are getting the information they need. The specific NICPs are able to give them advice on their particular area, so they're able to advise them whether their project aligns with what the Commission are looking for under a certain call or where it might actually fit. And then Invest are obviously then able to help when it comes to the specific SME related elements. When you mentioned about partners, certainly yes, there is for a number of companies and even for a number of academics as well. There are always issues with the concern over collaborating, concerns about in relation to IP and in relation to ownership, if you like, of the wider project. That's a continuous problem really for all R&D programmes, but I think Europe has witnessed and seen the fact that the collaborative R&D has such a benefit above and beyond people solely working on their own, and the cross-disciplinary action, which is what Horizon really is looking to push towards, is very much making sure that you've got your ICT researchers working with your health researchers, working with your energy researchers, and everybody is then able to share the expertise that they bring into it. So there is that weighing up and that balance for people to make. They have a decision and choice to make as to whether they're willing to collaborate, and that fundamentally will come down to how much they really want to engage in the particular project and how much of a blockage maybe they've reached which they can't address themselves and they need to find support with. You mentioned as well about information. We've had over 25 different sessions or workshops or events in 2013, with about 4 or 5 already this year as well, highlighting specific areas within Horizon 2020. So our contact points are taking the lead on those, where they're able to share with people about what's coming down the track in their specific areas and advise them on where they might be able to apply and what might be relevant to them. And obviously, again, those are open to SMEs, and also they're working and meeting with SMEs and talking to them and trying to guide them as to where within the programme might best fit their solution. But also, again, to highlight because of the links with Invest NI, what we might find on some occasions is that Horizon might not be the ideal solution for them to take forward. So the collaborative R&D team there are able to advise them as to where else they maybe could best find their solution for the R&D or innovation problem that they might be coming across.
Yeah, just on that, we certainly felt that a lot of businesses went to Invest, drew down money, which was probably a lot easier to do than to go through all the loops and over all the hurdles in relation to European funding. Is that an issue that I think needs to be looked at?
I think, historically, going even from FP7 into Horizon 2020, the issues of bureaucracy and the issues of dealing with Europe are well acknowledged across all the member states. They're all very, very aware of the fact that there was a need for simplification and a need to try and make it more attractive for SMEs to engage right across the piece, and that's not something that's just solely for Northern Ireland. It really is a big concern that they've had. Unfortunately, as the Commission will keep telling us, whenever you have 20-something different member states all coming together to fund into a central pot, which then will be distributed, it's never going to be a very simple and very easy process. There is going to be bureaucracy. Their challenge is to try and make sure that's as easy and simple as possible. And so for us on the ground, we don't have control over that, but what we do have control over is trying to make sure that people we send into that programme are as well educated as possible and are as well informed as possible and as well supported whenever issues might occur, and as they most likely do during a normal project. And so that's our challenge, and that's through our contact points here now on the ground, enable there in a much larger number to be able to support people and help them whenever such issues might arise. So it is an issue, it is a problem. The Commissioner are very well aware of it. They're trying to do things like reducing the number of audits. They're doing simple things like reduction of the number of people required to keep timesheets if they're working full-time, things which are bureaucratic and cause issues for companies and academics alike. Success, I guess, of that we will see as Horizon develops and as projects actually start to go through and as audits start to come through of the first funded projects. But until we see them coming through, we'll not know how much it's been reduced. But I think we'd be very, very fortunate if we ever got to a stage where it was as simple as a national funding programme, I think, to administer.
Okay, thanks very much.
Just picking up on that. Now, strip it all away. We're looking for opportunities here. I bump into somebody on the street, businessman, somebody with a good idea. Now, I say, and I'm just looking at the Irish Government document here, which is a list of the names and the responsibilities of all the national contact points. Who do I even start to go to say, there's the person to get in touch with, there's the person to get in touch, there's the person to get in touch? Because at this point in time, I do not have contact details for them.
Okay. They're on our website. They're on the DETI. If you go to deti.gov.uk/Horizon 2020, the details of all the contact points are there, plus the areas listed out of what areas they're covering, plus their email address and their phone number as well.
Right, okay. And how are you making sure that businesses get that?
Well,
are you working, sorry, there's already a database there of Invest NI businesses. How are you promoting that and getting that out there to those people to say, look, here's the opportunities, there's the opportunities? It's just, I'm not hearing it.
Sure.
But I'm not hearing it. Others most certainly aren't hearing it. Now, that may be partially my fault, but I can warrant you, others who should be hearing it aren't hearing it. Mm-hmm. Because, believe it or not, I come into contact, the same as everybody else in this room, elected member, come into contact with quite a number of people during the course of a day or a week.
Well, certainly, some very basic, simple things, like it's been out on the NI Executive's Twitter feed, the link to the website and the information saying contact points are available, and if you want to find out more, follow the links. So simple things like that we've done. As I mentioned, the events have taken place, so there's been a number of events where the contact points have been there, plus the sites have been up. The Intertrade events have taken place, and again, the contact points will be taking part with that. The collaborative R&D team, as I mentioned earlier on, right, they're meeting the people who they assess through their prior interactions as being R&D active companies, or companies who they feel might be R&D active. As they're going out and talking to them, they're flagging to them.
Right. Who are they? I don't know who the collaborative R&D team are.
The collaborative R&D team would be Joanne Coyle, who I mentioned earlier on, who's the...
No, sorry, I don't need the names. Sorry. If you could provide those to us, that would be helpful as well.
Certainly, yes. We can, but also their names and details are also on the website as well.
That's grand. All right, move then to Mrs. Overend. Sandra.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thanks very much for your increased information. In reference to the Northern Ireland Action Plan, There's just a couple of actions I wanted to refer to in my question. Action 7 is to increase the number of Horizon 2020 evaluators from Northern Ireland, and Action 9 is to increase Northern Ireland representation on EU groups and committees. What progress has been made to make those so far?
I carry on again. In terms of evaluators, what we decided to do was to try and house a central database of the evaluators who are registered from Northern Ireland. And so what we're doing is we're pulling together their details, so it'll be their candidate number that they have with the Commission, which is a specific reference number associated with them, plus their contact details, plus a little bit of information about who they are. And the reason for doing that is that if we centrally have that, and as the Northern Ireland contact points have that, then they're able to distribute those to the relevant project officers or national delegates or NCPs who are looking for people to be evaluating projects further down the line. And so that's to try and stimulate that a little bit, to try and encourage people to look to Northern Ireland, I guess, as a viable option to do that. But also we're continuing at all of the events that we run, whether it's an Intertrade one or an NICP event, we're continually pushing the advantages of people registering themselves as evaluators and trying to ease the process for them. There's a link on the Intertrade website which explains the process for them as to how they can register themselves and who should be registering, and a little bit about what's required of them whenever they do that. So we see enormous value in people becoming evaluators for the Commission, because they're learning so much whenever they go through that process. So we're trying to encourage as many people as possible to register and do it. We won't, obviously, because there's been no submissions yet under Horizon 2020, so nothing has been evaluated, so we won't be able to tell how that's working out just yet until the process has been gone through a few times. But along with looking at the numbers in terms of what we've drawn down, we'll be keeping a track on how many people from Northern Ireland are being called as evaluators, and if we feel that it's not maybe enough, we'll be certainly raising that through Barroso groups and various others to try and see can we encourage them to increase on that. On the groups and committees, again, that comes down to the contact points, and they at the minute are getting themselves involved in a number of groups, be they European or UK-wide, trying to see where can they best facilitate in their area, and that's really taking that across the area, so to be energy or health or whatever, trying to identify where are the key groups, as I say, whether they're national or EU, who are feeding information into the Commission, which is then stimulating them to work on the future of the work programme. So we've got the work programmes for 2014, 2015 at the minute, but they're trying to see who is effectively feeding the Commission information that's going to go into the 16-17 work programme, because that's what we want Northern Ireland companies and academics information to be going into, projects that are relevant to them that they can apply for and that we can best take advantage of. So at the minute the contact points are working on that, and they've joined already a number of groups which are, as I say, discussion groups or networking groups across Europe, which are trying to help to feed that kind of information in.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to touch a wee bit then on measure of the drawdown. Enterprise Ireland had stated that there'd been a notable increase in North-South applications at the end of Framework 7, and that collaboration was likely to remain a feature during Horizon 2020. Do you have a realistic target of drawdown for Horizon 2020 funding for Northern Ireland at this stage?
Well, if we don't, that'll be up to the department to set the targets for Northern Ireland. We would be looking at the targets for North-South applications, and when the two targets are confirmed, North and South, we'll be looking at that. But I can say, the South, as you know, have almost doubled their target. They're looking to draw down 1.2 billion in Horizon 2020, which is a substantial increase, but the structures are in place, and it is a realistic target. We, based on what we know, and it hasn't been through the steering group, and given the fact that the North-South drawdown amounted to about 80 million, if the South is doubling, I can't say because it's the subject of the next steering group, but there would be a substantial increase we would expect in a target for the Horizon 2020 period.
And has Northern Ireland got?
And for Northern Ireland, we'll be presenting the target for consideration by the Executive Subcommittee in the Economy at the end of this month. Again, setting the context. End of March. Sorry. I'm
anticipating you're going to be quick on the mark for that.
That's our plan, to present for agreement at that committee the target that we would propose set for Northern Ireland. Again, in terms of along the same lines as Aidan has said, in terms of level of ambition and moving forward, we'd like to see a significant increase in what we've drawn down to date.
Okay, and what proportion, or do you have an idea of, what proportion of the target would be through collaboration with the Republic of Ireland, comparison with other member states?
Yeah, I think, Aidan, as mentioned earlier, I think roughly is it 30% maybe of our success to date has been as a result of collaboration north-south.
But do you expect it to continue at that rate, or do you want that rate to change?
Well, we think there's a huge potential for increased north-south potential in terms of increasing that scope. We think the latest figure was maybe 8% in terms of success on the island has been through north-south collaboration. So we would like to see there's a lot more institutions, obviously, in the Republic of Ireland that are engaging in Europe. And we see an opportunity for more of our companies and more of our research organisations to collaborate with them.
I mean, there is a real opportunity there, given the extent of the Republic of Ireland's increase from 100 to 1.2 billion, and given the structures that are now in place, north and south, that weren't there at the beginning of FP7, and given the evidence that we're seeing, there is much more engagement happening at the events. We can see that already, so we're hopeful that, and also the very fact that, you have 2 member states that are on one island here, speaking the same language. You can just, it's an hour down the road or up the road, so it's just, it makes sense to take advantage of those opportunities. And with all the structures in place, we're quite confident that the extent or the successful drawdown will increase substantially.
Well, do you see, sorry, a question for the department again. Do you see is there a potential with other member states? I mean, and I appreciate what you're saying about the Republic of Ireland, and I have nothing against that whatsoever, but do you see potential elsewhere that you could increase collaboration with?
Yeah, absolutely.
And who are they, or who are you targeting?
I think it depends very much on the subject matter and the areas in which, and you will be aware already, I'm sure, from engaging with the university, that I have well-established collaborations on a European and indeed further afield. And if you look at the US-Ireland partnership, for example, and the collaboration is there, and you know now that Horizon 2020 funding can be stretched across the ES. So there are existing collaborations in place. The key is building on those for Horizon 2020, and that will depend very much on the subject matter. So we're not just looking at the north-south as much, and that's where the Enterprise Europe network comes in. It's funded through to make the connections for companies. You will be aware of our success in Regions of Knowledge, where there has been as a tripartite collaboration with a number of EU regions, which has been successful in the ICT field. So it's something that we have been working on and will continue to work and build upon. And
would you aim to provide, that level of detail in your targets that you're talking about at the end of March?
I think at the end of March, what we're proposing to say, look, here's an overall target of where we think that Northern Ireland can realistically and still yet ambitious achieve. In terms of the areas, given the will very much depend on the detail of the work programmes coming through and how they plan through. But we'll be looking at areas, we've already identified areas where we think there are greatest opportunities, and one of them might be Marie Curie process. We think we've got a great success around that there. There will be others where we think we have opportunity to grow more, perhaps in the energy field, or maybe areas that we look at. In terms of the detail of what regions we will partnership, we'll not be at that level of detail now, and that's something we would encourage, and funding is available from InvestNI, funding from other organisations to make those connections and make those collaborations, and that's what we do. But Simon might want to talk maybe about
it's just the fact that who you choose to partner with. I mean, the Horizon is following on from FP and very much focusing on the excellence piece, and so really who you're partnering with, it really has to be the people that you believe are of the significant or sufficient excellence that when you're working with them, the Commission will see as a viable. You are the project that they believe in will actually deliver what they want out of their call, and so it's very much, it's kind of hard to pick regions like that, but we are certainly, and we're talking with our Scottish and Welsh counterparts, because we believe there's more we can be doing in collaboration with them as well to try and bring ourselves into projects and even just inter-UK kind of projects as well, to try and take that out of Europe, because there's nothing to stop you from working with more than one partner from the UK. So we're trying to see how can we engage better with even those who are closer on our doorstep, as well as then working with the South and then others across Europe who've got the excellence that we need to then fulfil the roles in our projects.
Okay, thanks very much.
Okay, thanks for that.
Could I just sort of ask, how do you balance out your work between, there's a lot of maybes in what you're saying with me today, and you're talking about experience with what's going on already. How do you balance out what's going on already and reaching out to new potential businesses? How do you balance that out? I don't know who wants them.
So when you say what's going on already, do you mean the projects that are already
That
running?
you have in the pipeline, like you're talking about maybe Marie Curie, maybe this, maybe that.
Right, okay.
So how do you balance out your work between actually finalising those details and reaching out for new potentials?
Yeah, well, if I take it just from Intertrade's point of view, are the series events that we do, you know, they are new. They are bringing researchers together on a cross-border basis for the first time, and we are very careful that everybody in a particular area that we know of, and through the All-Ireland Steering Group where the other agencies collaborate, to make sure that anybody who has an interest in that particular field receives an invitation. So there, you know, we do target particular sectors when we're running events. I can only talk about what Intertrade are doing.
Okay.
Thanks.
Right, thanks for that. Just, you mentioned the website earlier there, but we're doing a wee cursory glance here through it to find the contacts, and unfortunately we haven't been able to turn them up. They seem to be very deep down there somewhere. And maybe a suggestion might be as well, if you had a link across to Intertrade Ireland. We've checked the InvestNI website too, and InvestNI on Horizon 2020 takes you into a European Commission website. It doesn't take you into anything specific that you might be doing or Intertrade Ireland may be doing. So that's just a cursory glance, 5-minute look through it here, and it's not readily springing up to any potential investor or any business person. So I think there's probably a bit of work to be done there too on the communication front.
I think if any business is asking you, you know, to tell them about the app and download it, because those contacts should be on the app. You know, and we will take to the next meeting of the steering group your point, and we'll propose that maybe we do some sort of type of cross-border initiative that outlines all the contact points and all the supports that are available.
It's not readily springing up there. If it's in there, it's buried down deep. So now we've already spoken to the developers of the website about its, actually we call it shortcomings, and if somebody's looking at information about this, not so sure they'll get it at Etty or InvestNI, but certainly we'll signpost them your direction. I have Aidan. Mr. Douglas, Sammy.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry if I had to nip out that time. In relation to the pure marine and the level of support that you offer to small, medium enterprises, could you maybe expand a wee bit on that? You can.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not aware of the pure marine example. Or the level of support? Is there?
That's a question that we spoke about early on.
Yes. You wouldn't be aware of this situation. You wouldn't be aware of the company, but you can outline some of the details, Sammy, just around the experience that they have.
From pure marine, that's upper.
Well, you can outline their circumstances, the situation they found themselves in.
Okay. Well, maybe if you could, we'll keep it simple then, maybe the sort of help and support for the level of support then, Kieran, in relation to small, medium enterprises.
Sorry, excuse me, Sammy. What you can do is you can outline what's down at point 2 there to the...
All right, do you want me to get back to that one then?
The officials here.
Okay.
Aye. Just to give them a bit of a grasp for what the sort of things we're dealing with.
Pure Marine are you aware of Pure Marine?
They're based in the Science Park. Is that the company based in
that their direct experiences are shared, and it's highlighted that they approached Queen's University, who had no resources to commit to bidding, compared to the UCC, who've resources and funds to get a bid team in place to prepare a strong bid. But what they were saying was that they went to Queen's and the money wasn't there. Would that also be the experience with other universities? You're aware of, thank you.
If a company is considering putting an application into Horizon 2020, there's funding available from InvestNI through this project definition to scope out that project. So that's the source of revenue from which a company can avail of within InvestNI. I'm not aware of the pure machine where they've approached InvestNI. If they approached Queen's University, the funding models that we have in Northern Ireland for supporting companies are different from that in the Republic of Ireland.
Yes.
And that's probably a key point. Universities don't fund companies to support their Horizon 2020 applications. They will work with them, but the company, if it wants to get access to funding to scope out what a project might be, It can go to invest in Go West. It could also go to Intertrade Ireland in base of some of its support, if it's a north-south collaboration, whatever else. But for Northern Ireland, if a company's interested in Horizon 2020, the facility exists within the grant for R&D called project definition, up to a scale, and that's how they would do it. I think, if I'm right, you're referring to what support universities can give in the Republic of Ireland, and that's a different level of support. They have a mechanism there as a substantial in the scheme, let's say, if we want to call it that, there, where they're able to avail of that we do not have in Northern Ireland.
I'm ready to say as well, maybe this point has been made, but even outside of Horizon, there are other programmes, European programmes, that small, medium enterprises can tap into as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Mr. McKinney, Fergal.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for presenting this today. Given the emphasis that there's been on North-South collaboration in general, but North-South obviously specifically, why does the action plan not refer to the North-South steering group?
This action plan that we produced from a Northern Ireland perspective was a series of actions in Northern Ireland identified of what we think needed to happen to try and improve the infrastructure moving forward to get companies and organisations ready. There wasn't specific action about North-South collaboration at that time. There will be one produced for 2014. We're in the preparation of doing that now for 14 and 15. And if we believe that there's an action around the North-South steering group that links into it, then we'll certainly include it. But at the time when that was being produced, we didn't see a specific need for an action.
Yeah, but I suppose, given that the admission here today is we missed the boat a lot on FP7, would it be valuable to have put that in to alert people to the foundations, if you like, of what the action plan's about?
Yes.
I think, what we can see in
explain its absence.
I think one of the key actions that the vast bulk of what has happened in the action plan is really the formation of the Northern Ireland Contact Point Network is the vast bulk of what is really being called upon there. And the key action, whenever you look at what their task was doing, their role is to engage with the UK NCPs and the Irish NCPs and to try and get as much information as they can out of them and to work with them and also with Intertrade as well as part of that. And so they are, the vast bulk of what they're doing is trying to draw down information from their counterparts in the UK and in the South to try and make sure that is part. So I appreciate it's not specifically written within that it's there, but that their rule, which is a fundamental part of what we're asking to do in the action plan, is certainly working on a north-south basis.
But do you accept that it's writ large, people understand the concept more, and it's underscored by your response to Mr. Douglas that, the universities here don't have, for example, access to a project process that is available to the South.
An EU fund.
And the South is getting more money, and of course it's beyond just the universities. The regional colleges too are involved, although we don't have the model of regional colleges in the same way. Did you want to come in, Patsy?
Just particularly on that point there, Fergal, this throws a challenge down to yourselves. If the money's not there, why not? And if it's not there, are there other sources of funding that you can tap into to draw down monies for those universities or FE colleges or whatever it might be? Has anybody done a scoping exercise on that?
All I can talk about is through the North-South Steering Group, the All-Ireland Steering Group. There has been a quantum change in the structure, in the support structure in Northern Ireland, because we have been looking at this area for some time, and the problem with getting an availing of the North-South opportunities that we always thought were there was that the structures were mismatched, they were unbalanced. In the South you had a network of NCPs of over 30 people. In the universities themselves, they have big teams working in this area to draw down the money. So you had a very substantial network there that wasn't replicated in Northern Ireland, so it was difficult just to get that level of engagement. Now we have the two structures and with all the supports behind it, so that's why we're confident there will be.
Back to that specific point. Is there any project underway anywhere by the department, in conjunction with the department, cross-departmentally, whatever it is, to identify, you've identified the failing or the fault or the opportunity that might be to draw down new sources of funding and to see, right, issue there, let's deal with it?
At the present time, no. There's not.
Well, is it on the radar?
Yes, it has been on the radar in terms of we have looked at our focus has been putting in place the network to see how that can better support applicants to engage in Horizon 2020. Moving forward, we are aware that the Republic of Ireland invested some €10 million, I think, into FP7 in terms of support it gives directly to the universities. The issue of applicability, how that would read across here, we are going to look, is that something that perhaps, again, given budgets, that we should look at introducing into Northern Ireland, the two universities and indeed the colleges? Is there a fund that, would a similar type fund be effective in Northern Ireland to encourage and incentivise more applications?
So what actions are being taken on that then at the moment?
Well, we're preparing an action plan for 2014 to 2015. That will be one of the actions that we'll be looking at.
Okay. That's grand. Okay, Fergal.
Okay, thank you, Chair, for developing the point. And obviously what you've referred to in the action plan is, if you like, building capacity in terms of contact points and replicating the structures. Is there, however, a strategy in the north consistent with the one in the south?
We have the document we're working to now is the action plan on an annual basis.
But where's the strategy upon which it's based?
The strategy follows through from the economic strategy and follows through from the innovation strategy, in the sense that there will be a strong commitment to increase Northern Ireland's success.
But we have here a document which outlines in great detail the Republic of Ireland's strategy. Have we got one of those in the north?
No, we do not know. We have been operating on the basis of an action plan for 14 in terms of getting a network in place. Again, we look at the strategy and say, is that something that we should drive forward for this period?
But shouldn't you start with a strategy and follow through? Is that not what happened in the Republic? And they achieved, they've achieved success out of the process that they took, the way they proceeded. We're jumping on board, if you like, now on structure, but we're still absent a strategy. So can we be guaranteed that the structural approach that we're taking is going to work to the same extent in the absence of a strategy? Can you guarantee that? Would it be helpful?
I agree. I think it would be helpful. There's no doubt about that.
And is there work ongoing towards establishing a strategy?
Well, we're certainly looking from a Northern Ireland perspective. Our focus will be on seeing how we can maximise our opportunities for Horizon 2020. There's no doubt about that there.
But do you appreciate that's different?
I mean, from my point of view, I mean, we see the Northern Ireland Regional Innovation Strategy.
Let's just rewind. Is this okay? Just to rewind. I mean, we have now identified through Mr. Douglas's question a hole. How are you going to plug the holes if you're just going to replicate downriver structures and not have foreseen in a strategic way all of the issues that need to be developed? Because we've identified one specific hole here, and overall we've identified that we've fallen short in the last round, and that our next round is less ambitious, even given the disparity in size, is less ambitious than the South's ambition. So do we need a strategy?
I think we do, yes. And that's something, again, that in terms of moving forward, we look at how do we develop that, and our greatest focus then is building on what we have learned from our action plan this year in terms of the implementation of the infrastructure, identifying where the opportunities for growth are, and identifying those areas where we think we've got greatest potential to exploit, and also who those partners might be.
But that would be better within a strategic approach as opposed to just following downriver processes.
I think it's unfair to say we're following a downriver process. We're putting in place what we think is the structures that best fit Northern Ireland.
But against what?
We did some comparative analysis in our review of the support structures back in 2011, which led to the formation of the contact point. We looked at other places, what they have there. We looked at where the opportunities lay. We looked at and the strengths of where Northern Ireland research base is, and seeing where we can best move forward. We also looked at, in terms of analysis of our company size, what is realistic for Northern Ireland participation in terms of moving forward, and that formed the basis of how we identified the areas in which the contact points will work. They don't match. We don't match.
But we also know through other evidence that we've gathered through the committee, and you'll be aware of, that we are absent vast amounts of data, particularly around small companies. So we don't know. We don't know, I would suggest, on some of the issues, and we could do with more. And a strategic approach would turn up some of those issues and maybe resolve them. Would that be fair?
Agree.
Thank you, Chair.
So, what's being done about it then? You agree it's next stage, what's being done about it?
Well, the immediate stages, we're looking to set the target for Northern Ireland. Following out, that was, well, what actions are required to deliver across that target. The point has been made about putting in context the action plan that we were planning for 14-15 into the context of a wider strategy, and that's what we'll be concentrating moving forward.
And that action plan, when will that be available?
Well, it'll be, I think our target is maybe at the end of June. I think that was our target to have it ready, to follow through for 14 and 15.
Okay, thanks for that. Mr. Anderson, Sydney.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, gentlemen, for presenting to the committee today. Can I continue maybe with the theme and expand on the theme of Mr. McKinney in relation to strategy? The Republic of Ireland's strategy, it actually includes separate strategies for individual within elements of Horizon 2020, and namely excellent science, industrial leadership and societal challenges. From the earlier answers and discussions there, has a similar approach been taken or not for Northern Ireland? Or is there nothing out there?
Certainly, when you talk about the excellent science element, which the bulk of which goes to the European Research Council and Marie Curie, and given that that is fundamentally aimed at universities, both universities were tasked under the action plan with putting together a strategy for how they were going to approach the ERC and the Marie Curie. So there are strategies for how they're taking forward their interaction into those. As regards the industrial leadership and the societal challenges, so mainly we're addressing them through, as Kieran's already mentioned, the contact point network, and through the events and through the focusing of sharing the information out with people and getting people the details of how they can apply. So really that's been the approach that we've taken towards those, but the strategies are there from the universities for the two that are most fundamental to them.
So are you happy enough that what's in place at the moment for Northern Ireland compares with the Republic in relation to those particular?
I don't think we're saying we're certainly not happy enough. I think what we're saying is that very clearly there's an opportunity for us moving forward, and we have to continue to improve and see how we strengthen the structures we have in place that can avail of those opportunities. And as we mentioned earlier, we have an action plan that was completed. We're moving forward. We'll put that in the context of a wider strategy. Work is already underway, as Simon has mentioned, on addressing specific issues within the three elements of Horizon 2020. And that will be an ongoing process.
So, when would that extra work, or Kieran, when do you see that really kicking in here to get up to a level? Are we lagging behind here in some way with the Republic of Ireland in relation to this? And we are, why can we not get to that position?
I think in terms of lagging behind, just in terms of performance, the Republic of Ireland has performed extremely well in terms of its drawdown in FP7. There's been no doubt about it. It set an ambitious target for 2020. We believe that we are putting now in place the structures that will help us significantly increase our performance to a point where, and I think it's unfair sometimes to compare directly what we have in Northern Ireland against the Republic of Ireland in terms of capacities. The biggest issue is around capacity in a number of institutions. I think they have 20 research institutions that are recognised under Horizon 2020. At the present time, we have the two universities. That's not to say that we can't be doing more, and we certainly will be doing more. So our focus is definitely on improving Northern Ireland's performance, as indeed the Republic has. And that will be the actions about how we are going to do that will be set out in an action plan that we will do in the context again, and taking on board the committee's views there of this wider strategic approach as to where the opportunities are.
Well, obviously that's a great, big challenge for you. But is there anything in the Republic of Ireland that they're doing better than what Northern Ireland is doing here? Is there something here that you could take benefit of, or to move this to some sort of a level that would get us there with better results?
I think, again, to go back, and I know the committee is aware of this in terms of the Republic of Ireland, and research institutions in Northern Ireland have access to other sources of funding at a national level that the Republic of Ireland would not have access to, and that's so it's a choice for researchers. The department cannot force, and it's not the research institutions, and that's 3/4 of our funding comes from our two research institutions, to go for Horizon 2020. That's just not something we should be doing. We have to encourage them and support them do that. And I say they do have access to other significant opportunities elsewhere within the UK, where it's EPSRC or other research council funding that is there. So it's not a direct comparison. What we are learning from the Republic of Ireland is the network and the communication, how that strengthens and enhances the support that's available to the companies going through. We also have a small company base, but we have to work harder with our SMEs to encourage them to participate. And again, I come back to the point I suppose I made before the committee, is that, you know, there are opportunities there for SMEs. We need to build capacities in our SMEs to engage. Same as mentioned at the start, Horizon 2020 is about excellence. It is a 20% or 21%, 20% success rate, so it can be quite off-putting, but that's not to say that we should be supporting it, but it's just to be realistic for companies in terms of how they're moving forward.
Obviously a big challenge there. Aidan, can I just
add, there was an interesting statistic came up at as one of the All-Ireland steering groups, where there is excellent knowledge exchange, and the Northern Ireland is learning a lot from the investment that's been made in the South. But there was an interesting statistic that the overall success rate is around, for North-South, is about 25%. The average, the EU average for an application is about 22%. But a business or a researcher that avails of the national support structure in the South increases their chances of success by 10%. It goes up to 32, 33%. So the support structure is absolutely critical, and Northern Ireland now has in place that support structure.
And you see, that was a great benefit then, I take it. Aidan, just a brief, Chair. I think you touched on at the start, you talked about knowledge exchange and knowledge transfer. How much of that is taking place at present?
In terms of the steering group meets 3 times a year. You've already seen, I've went through some of the examples and given the evidence of the success there since the steering group was convened, and the big increase that there has been in North-South applications. So, but as I said, the information exchange goes beyond that, beyond just all the actions that we have now in place to deliver North-South cooperation. It meets 3 times a year, so they're discussing, and the Northern Ireland contact points are now encouraged to work closely with the European advisors in the South. So that exchange network is broadening all the time, and there's learning just through the contacts that are being made.
Can I just add to that as well? Sorry, I mean, to echo what Aidan has said. I mean, the Northern Ireland contact points have also been invited by Imelda, who chairs the NCP network in the South, to join them at their network meetings as well. And so Sitting was there on Monday. There was myself and a number of the other NICPs were there. And so we are, and when you made the earlier reference about what we can learn and what we can benefit from what is happening very well in the South, I mean, the NCP network in the South is pretty much the envy of the rest of Europe. They're very, very strong, very, very skilled people who know what they're doing. So our contact points, being very, very well linked in with them, are getting a lot of that information, getting a lot of expertise off them. And as I say, through simple things like having the opportunity to go to their network meetings and being able to share in the meetings they're having where they're discussing all manner of things is a fantastic opportunity for us, and we're taking those opportunities whenever they're presented to us.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. Just picking up on something that you said earlier there about two principal research institutes, or two research institutes in the north here. Where do you factor in the likes of the Open University, which has a lot of research facilities in itself, or AFBI? Which is a different direction, different area, because if you're just focusing on two, good enough to those two, you're missing a trick with the others.
AFBI actually have, DARD have funded a role within AFBI as one of the Northern Ireland contact points. And so they're very much aware of the opportunities that are coming down the track, and David is working very, very hard to see where the opportunities are in AFBI and also beyond. He's also got a regional remit, so he's working with companies, he's working with Queen's, working with UU to see where the opportunities are in that specific area. In relation to Open University, I've met with them a couple of times. I have a meeting with them lined up in a couple of weeks' time as well to see how can that work with the OU as to where part of the issue for them is the centralised nature of OU and where does their funding go to. If it comes centrally, then it won't come under Northern Ireland's drawdown effectively, but still not to mean that we wouldn't encourage it or support it, but it's just to be aware of the fact of, where does, how does their setup actually work whenever it comes to engaging.
They do operate in the rest of the island too, you're aware.
Yeah, so we're trying to work out how does that fit. So I'm meeting with them in a couple of weeks' time to discuss
that's
that.
That's grand, thank you. Mr. Frew, Paul.
Thank you very much, Chair. You've already outlined, and I think we all can take it for granted, that Northern Ireland is in a very good and unique opportunity and place with regards to collaboration with the Republic of Ireland, our nearest neighbours. Ticks all the boxes with regards to collaboration for Europe, so we should make best practice and use of that. But the Republic of Ireland's strategy, and again it goes back to Fergal McKinney's point about strategy, they have a whole section, Section 8, which outlines linkages with Northern Ireland. Now, is there a similar document for Northern Ireland which replicates or mirrors that approach?
No, and I think that's the point that we certainly accept in terms of moving forward. That will be something that the North-South element is missing directly from the action plan, but in terms of strategic context, that will be incorporated into a strategy for Northern Ireland for Horizon 2020.
But I would say, the degree of cooperation is very, very close. I mean, and the two departments, our two sponsor departments, DETI and DJEI in the South, presented to the two ministers at their last meeting in North-South Ministerial Council.
Yeah, but we have action plans. Both countries have action plans. Yet we seem to be blinded by the fact with no strategy. The Republic of Ireland seem to have a strategy. They have a whole section on linkages with Northern Ireland. So it seems that the Republic of Ireland value Northern Ireland greatly, whereas we're not seeing that replicated. To the point, even, that in Section 8, they go into nitty-gritty detail. They actually go into the specific areas where we should be looking at for research. Significant opportunities, and I quote, significant opportunities for electricity grid and marine technology collaborations, especially concerning all Ireland market opportunities. FP7 security has been a North-South success story. Already there are multiple joint North-South proposals under consideration for Horizon 2020. So they have actually outlined specific areas for growth, whereas we have nothing. How would you counter that?
I can only counter by saying that in terms of moving forward, we'll make sure and ensure that in developing a strategy for Ireland for Horizon 2020, the North-South element in terms of cooperation and opportunities for growth will be identified. We are working through, as Sam has said, on a practical level. Our contact points are engaging with their counterparts in the Republic of Ireland in terms of scoping out where the opportunities do exist now. There are existing collaborations between our universities and indeed our companies and various institutes, so it is happening. The visibility of that, I take your point fully, is that you don't see the visibility of that in a document, and in terms of moving forward, we'll ensure that that visibility is there.
How long have we been working on Horizon 2020?
Well, we've been preparing for Horizon 2020 since about 2011, 2012.
But yet we do not have that detail in a document, nor do we have a strategy in place that will move it forward.
We were moving forward on the basis of getting our infrastructure in place in terms of an action plan. And that's what our focus was, in getting the network up and running, getting the funding for the network in place, putting the right support around that network to make sure we do that.
In order to enhance engagement in the Republic of Ireland, higher educational institutions are being invited to develop strategies for Horizon 2020, and research centres are being encouraged to adopt a more strategic approach to international engagement. Is there a similar approach undertaken in Northern Ireland, or again, is that something that we're going to be doing in the future?
No, there is an approach for our universities again.
Universities have, yeah.
We've mentioned.
Yeah, and is it similar to the engagement and the advice and the encouragement that the Republic of Ireland are pumping into their educational institutions?
They have, yeah, I mean, they have strategy set out as to how they're going to target it. They're working with their heads of school, their deans, or whatever, getting information sessions out. They're working through the other structures that they have within the university to make sure that from the top down that information is going through to the researchers, and they've got ideas on how many workshops they're going to have and how they're going to interact with the contact points, and also just all the things you would expect them to have as to how they're going to better engage with those programs. So that, I mean, they have got that in terms of Queen's and UU, and AFBI are working on it, I believe.
Well, with regards to the action plan, how many pages is in our action plan?
7 or 8.
7 or 8. How many pages are in the Republic of Ireland's action plan?
I don't have it in front of me at the moment.
Okay, would there be about 7 or 8, or would there be more?
I don't have it in front of me at the moment, I'm afraid.
Right, okay. So, with regards to strategy, what's the timeline on our strategy? When will we have it in place?
I can't commit to the timescales now. What I can commit is that it will be taken forward, but it will need to be done as soon as possible in full engagement with those who are involved in delivering companies and our universities, and delivering with them to make sure that the actions are consistent with what they can deliver.
So how will our strategy, when we have one, line up with our action plan? And then how do we get that information to our businesses and our educational facilities?
Well, the action plan is there, the one we produced. It was produced in consultation and full engagement with the key drivers, or the key our universities and other bodies, in terms of those participants in Horizon 2020, in FP7. And moving forward, we'll go through the same process, and that will outline very clearly what our actions will be. And that commitment we have to do the 14-15 action plan will be out by the end of June, and that will refer to the need for a strategy, and the strategy will be taken forward in the timescale that we think we can deliver. The issues of do we go for full public consultation will need to be considered on issues in terms of delivery of that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. New, Stephen.
Thank you, Chair, and I welcome the fact that we have both DEDI and Intertrade here together. It suggests collaboration. I hope it, hope that's the reality, but certainly appears that way in the face of it, and that's certainly joined up work in both throughout Northern Ireland and throughout Ireland as a whole is something we need moving forward. In our evidence from the Northern Ireland Chamber of Commerce, there was, and I hope it's okay, I'm going a bit broader than Horizon 2020. They suggested that in terms of funding for R&D and innovation, there was too much of too little. There were a lot of funds, but they were scattered. They were, to kind of negotiate all these funds is kind of a minefield. There wasn't one place they could go to and be told what all the funds were, where they were. What work is being done try to bring some of that together to make it easier for a business to negotiate?
From a Northern Ireland perspective, I'll explain it, and it's wider than Horizon 2020. Obviously, I think we briefed the committee before in terms of one of the key actions coming out of the innovation strategy was the idea of an open innovation resource, which would navigate a sat-nav for companies about where to go, who to go to, and what's the best method of support that will help them take whatever idea they have forward. So that's the...
From either, and from both possibly the Intertrade's point of view and the department's point of view, what potential is there to collaborate with those other funding organisations to actually pull resources? So the bigger funds can be created, but also the simplification can be achieved.
These questions to them, Jim.
It's not our role. Intertrade Ireland is an implementation body, and you're right. We have a survey of businesses across the island, and we survey previously 1,750 businesses every quarter, and we are aware through the survey that there is a lack of awareness sometimes among the business community of the supports that are out there. And now this goes beyond just R&D supports. We've just completed a study into access to finance for growth, and that was something that was very clear, that there was a lack of information good quality and relevant information reaching the business community onto the range of supports that were available for and the range of funding options that were available for them. So that's a much wider issue.
In terms of Intertrade Ireland itself, you content? We've actually now it's an old research paper from about 2 years ago. Highlighting the list of the various funds, and we have BIS, we've DARD, we've DEL, we've Invest NI, we've DEDI, we've Intertrade. Various organisations. Are you confident? And I think in fact we've asked this in relation to Invest NI. Are you confident that the R&D funds of Intertrade are providing added value and not overlap? Because it's certainly suggesting throughout the whole field there's overlap between R&D. That was the Northern Ireland Chamber's claim. Are you content that your funds are providing added value rather than replicating something that exists elsewhere?
There's two issues there. We can show that they're adding value in terms of because we evaluate every intervention that we make with a company. So we know that every intervention is delivering value, that every scheme or programme is delivering value, because we actually go to every business who receives funding from us 2 to 3 years after they've received the funding, and we ask them specifically what value can they attribute just to the money that the support that we give them in terms of business generated, costs saved, our investments leveraged, or jobs created. So those figures are there. But we also, before the event, if you like, we work very, very closely with our sister agency, particularly Enterprise Ireland and Invest Northern Ireland, to ensure that there's no duplication. And in fact, they would sit on most of the committees that oversee any programme that we're running to make sure that there is no duplication. Okay. So we are very mindful of that.
Just so I can better understand the relationship between DEDI and Intertrade, obviously the department part funds Intertrade, but you're in a unique position in that you're working north and south. We've heard the line of question is clear, and we've heard from the Chamber the evidence that there's a lot going on in the south that we can learn from, as well as your employer essentially DEDI directing you. Is there a two-way conversation, or DEDI listening to you in terms of, here's where the department needs to be doing more, doing better, or where things need to be going in Northern Ireland? Is it a two-way conversation?
Yeah, well, the strategic, the remit of Intertrade Ireland says very clearly that it's to exchange and coordinate information on work on trade and business development, and we provide that information through the research reports that we publish. We just published one on access to finance for growth across the island. We looked at what we published a report on the export capability of SMEs across the island. So we provide that information through the reports that we undertake, and these are then presented to the ministers, to the departments, and to the ministers who meet in sectoral format 3 times a year now.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
All right, Steve. Mr. Flanagan.
Thanks, Patsy, and I'm sorry you're here so long, but I think we're being fairly nice to you, so you might manage to stick on a bit.
It's about the end.
What happens if the British government takes us out of the European Union? What impact does that have on the work you do?
On the work Intertrade does?
Well, the North-South Steering Group on Horizon 2020.
Horizon 2020 we go.
It would depend, I guess, whether in a similar way to other regions would have to negotiate whether the UK would want to continue to be a part of Horizon 2020. I mean, Switzerland recently have actually now been regarded as a third entity outside of because they used to buy into it. So countries have the option to buy into it. So it obviously would depend on whether the BIS as a department, they take the lead in that, would want to actually buy into Horizon and take it as something they see a value in or not, I guess, at that stage.
But is it something the department here has considered, you're aware of?
We haven't, we're not, as I say, Intertrade Ireland is an implementation body. The ministers have told us to increase north-south applications and north-south drawdown. That's what we're trying to do. It is obviously the potential for if the UK were to take that decision, would go across all spheres of activity, business and social.
Okay. And what about the possibility that Scotland votes to become an independent country and becomes an EU member state?
And just to advise you, we're not anticipating that you get into the realm of
Oh no, I'm talking about business.
The practical outworkings, yes.
Have you looked at that to consider what work could be done involving businesses in Scotland, businesses in the north and businesses in the south to make the three participants from three member states? Is that a possibility that DETI have considered yet?
We haven't looked at it with that specific mindset behind it, but we have, as I mentioned earlier on, been talking to Scottish and Welsh representatives, certainly to try and see can we increase the currently intra-UK collaboration, given the fact that Scottish universities have performed very, very well and they've dominated the Scottish performance. 80-something% of Scottish drawdown has come from the university sector. It's very, very high and very strong. And so from our standpoint, we're very keen to see how can we, not only from our academic standpoint, but our companies be engaging with Scottish universities to take that on. So certainly from our point, if we were to go that direction, that obviously would, as you say, provide us with another member state. But at this stage, it's more just a simple opportunity, because regardless of whether they're inside or outside of UK or the EU or whatever way it works, they will still be a viable opportunity for us.
But it's something that, if it is a political change that happens, it's something that you can adapt to and maximise to the benefit of businesses here.
Certainly, if it was the case, we would look to do it. Yeah.
Have any applications been submitted? To Horizon 2020 yet?
Not as yet, no.
Okay. In terms of the role of Inter-Trade Ireland Aid, there's an increase in focus on Horizon 2020 and North-South collaboration, and you see that even at a political level around this table. And Inter-Trade Ireland have a vital role to play in making this a success. How will the reducing Inter-Trade Ireland budget impact on your ability to deliver on Horizon 2020?
As you said, this is a priority area, and we've been directed that it's a priority area. It's very clear from the discussions that have been taken by the two ministers. So we are protecting the resources that are devoted to this area.
So in the Inter-Trade Ireland budget, is there something that the two ministers have set aside specifically for this type of work?
We have, our budgets are set through our annual business plans and initially through the corporate plan, and this work has been prioritised within the business plan, and there is a budget stream there. The actual amount of money that is required, the schemes that we offer and that we run, the amount of assistance is very small. So it doesn't take up a great deal of our resource in that regard. It's more, the skill and the work involved from people like Simon and Carrie behind me.
And does the North-South Steering Group itself have any resources or staff, or is it just people from different agencies that are...
The North-South Steering Group is composed of the key representatives with the relevant responsibilities in the departments and in the agencies, and it's serviced by the Secretariat. We chair it and provide Secretariat support for it. Yeah.
So there's no dedicated staff for it?
Ourselves are dedicated to that, to
you're dedicated to it, but it's not a full-time role?
No.
In terms of the DETI in the north and the Department of Enterprise, Jobs and Innovation in the south, what are the comparable staff numbers that are set aside to deal with Horizon 2020? Is that something you have information on?
No, but I just in terms of, and I don't have the precise figures. I mean that we could easily get them, but remember that you're dealing with a region and a national government.
Has any actual work been done to analyse why there's such a difference in the success of the two regions in drawing down European funding historically?
That, not the direct comparisons, but through the steering group it's obviously been discussed, and there's no doubt it was clear from the initial discussions was the investment made in the south for FP7 to put the structures in place and get the people on the ground working in specific areas to address specific calls is fundamental in that regard. Yeah.
And in terms of that investment, has a business case or any other piece of work been done to look at, say, both departments were going to put in, say, €1 million over the next 6 years to fund this. And that's a figure I've just plucked out of thin air. But if that was to be the figure, has any work been done to see what the payback would be to the local economy?
You can see the payback if you just take the south. You know, they invested, what was it, 10 million approximately in 87. They've drawn down over, they will hit their target, it'll be close to 600 million.
Okay.
You know, so in very crude terms, that's the payback.
But looking forward, has any work been done?
Looking forward, I mean, we don't do it, that's up to the government, but you've been references to their strategy. You know, they've obviously seen the benefits to that. They have reappointed all the structures are now in place again for Horizon 2020, and they've doubled their targets.
That's in the south. What's happened in the north?
Well, we have, in terms of the investment made through DETI and DALE into the Higher Education EU Support Fund, which is 1.8 million has gone into that there. And then, as Simon mentioned earlier, AFTI have also identified a resource to fund the contact points, so that it maybe brings us up towards 2 million euros. That's in sterling. Sorry, moving forward. The wider issue is this wider investment to support. And I think the point has been made earlier about direct support to universities, to researchers within universities, where they can draw down. I think in the Republic of Ireland, is it maybe 11,000 euros or 12,000 euros to support in the application. That facility does not exist in Northern Ireland. That's the 10 million euros. The other investment the Republic of Ireland made has been in their contact point network, which, you know, I think there's 35, 36, whatever, in that, again, covering member state duties, but at the same token, we've mirrored that to a degree.
And have DETI given any consideration to establishing a fund for micro businesses to be able to bid into to help them support their applications?
Well, the fund is available for businesses. The funding is there. Enterprise Ireland, and again, if you the key funding in the Republic of Ireland goes towards the universities. In terms of, I'm not sure what the equivalent funding available is in Enterprise Ireland, but I don't think it's significant. We do have a fund in place that supports companies who wish to engage in Horizon 2020.
But we have an example here from Pure Marine, which is based in Science Park, that said they approached Queen's and there's no money available, but yet they were able to go to the University College in Cork and get funding. So there's obviously a problem there. What are you doing to help micro businesses that are in that situation?
I'm not aware of PureGen, but again, I would have thought that PureGen, the scope for PureGen, and that instance would have been to go to Invest NI to attract funding to do that. And I'm not sure why they didn't, or if they did. And again, I don't know the details, but that's a company.
But you're telling me the funding is made available through universities?
No, the funding in the Republic of Ireland, the funding is made available to university employees.
Okay. So how do DETI support micro businesses apply for Horizon 2020?
Through Invest NI's project definition.
Right. So we'll go back to Pure Marine and see whether they want to invest in NI to find out that there. But we are getting an awful lot of evidence from particularly micro businesses that there's a huge differential in the level of support that's on offer between the north and the south, and that's something that needs to be addressed. In terms of the border corridor, I'm on record a number of times criticising the neglect of both governments to the border corridor. Is there a significant opportunity within funding programmes such as Horizon 2020 to rectify that, as cross-border collaboration could be much easier for organisations and businesses based in the border region?
Yeah, I mean, there's a range of funds, as you were, for the border corridor. You know, you've the Interreg funding and you've the PEACE funding, but there's obviously nothing to stop companies in the border corridor applying for for Horizon 2020 funding. It's a different type of procedure that you go through. It's incredibly competitive procedure, but there are examples of companies within the border counties that you would expect could be in a position to avail of these opportunities, you know.
Okay.
And certainly, I mean, how we target them is through when we're running specific events. We target companies that we think are suitable to those.
So you proactively go after organisations?
We invite the people, and we popularise the events, you know. Through
and then are you getting the feedback that there's not enough support for micro businesses to benefit from such funding streams?
No, I wouldn't have that evidence, and that wouldn't be our entirely our views. From what we can see is that there is very good support structures in place for businesses who wish to avail of these. Now, there may be problems of making businesses aware that these support structures are there, but there's certainly an increased level of interest among the business community, SMEs in particular, of Horizon 2020.
Okay.
So it's really, you know, making increasing awareness of the supports that are available, and then bringing the appropriate businesses through the support structures, you know. But they have to take the business decision that they want to avail of it.
And in terms of the target for R&D spending, is the North going to hit its target of 3% of GDP, even though we don't know what our GDP is, but are we going to hit that target?
I'm not aware of the 3% target for
Well, that's the European point.
Sorry,
Yeah,
European
yeah.
target. We're currently about 1.8 or 1.9 of GVA, I think it is, so it's not there. The target for R&D spend is set out in the programme for government in terms of, and I think there's been invested in everything, and the department's been reporting back, and I'm not aware, but I think they're on target in terms of the spend and the leverage in that spend, because as you know, the R&D expenditure, we're now above the UK average, has increased by 150% since 2009. So the 3% you're absolutely is an EU 2020 target for that they're setting as European wide. Our target is more just to think on the GB, is on the leveraging the spend from business.
Right, thanks, Liz.
Okay, thank you. Just particularly on that one, Phil, the Pure Marine one, he did cite in his correspondence that the lack of support available from InvestNI meant that they couldn't advance the project, so clearly there's an issue there. Specifically, just one final point here. The Republic strategy makes reference to the National Support Network for Horizon 2020 and says that it's going to work on an all-island basis. What does that mean in practice?
It means that effectively they open up their information and they share their information with now through the contact point network, so they now have a route to be able to do that. So if it's energy, for example, they can share with their energy contact point details and that. So they're, due to the fact they're a member state, they have access to the Commission, which we don't have, so which we can get through the UK, obviously, but what they bring in and share, they're then happy to share on an all-island basis. They don't stop there. But also they will support events, you know, if there's events that are running, or they'll provide information for us to events and things like that as well.
That's grand. That's grand. Thanks for that. Probably what we'll be doing is keeping a close watch on this, the manifestation of this action plan and how it works, and we may well have to speak later with the Minister and Chief Executive of InvestNI around that. But in the meantime, thanks for your time. You're getting the thrust of where the committee has been. It's something that the committee itself has focused and spent a lot of time on, and so therefore, back to the original point, we're looking to opportunities here and how it can best be done. So, but thank you in the meantime. Okay.
Thank you.
A couple of just housekeeping issues that we have to pick up on there. Those figures, I think it was yourself, just Aidan, before you did, you mentioned figures of employees in both jurisdictions, north and south, the employees dedicated to Horizon 2020. So anyway, we'll be writing to yourselves around that matter, okay?
Okay, yes.
Thank you. Right, that's grand. Thanks very much. Okay, we'll move to matters raising from previous issues. These items are from page 126 onward. We had a committee request had gone into RBS and tabled today's letter from the Chief Executive of Ulster Bank. The Chief Executive of Ulster Bank, who has replied or has been directed to reply from RBS, has indicated that he is content to brief the committee on the 10th of April.
Table, Patsy, aye?
Aye. It's on the 10th of April. I think it's particularly relevant given the news this morning about the losses sustained at Ulster Bank, the 1.5 billion, and also the reference to say that they were going to clearly reduce the size of the bank. Quite worrying stuff, and I'm sure for customers and indeed employees particularly alike. So that'll be very important that we have him along and get as much detail from, if it hasn't been announced before then. I'll come to you in a minute, Gordon. But we have also correspondence from the Committee for Finance and Personnel requesting that its members come along to attend the meeting with RBS and Ulster Bank. So if we're content to receive a briefing on the 10th of April, and for members of Finance and Personnel Committee to be invited to attend this briefing, and indeed the briefing probably prior to it by the IBOA, the Irish Bank Official Association. Agreed to do that? Agreed.
Chair, is that going to be on the 10th of April?
10th of April, aye.
Here?
I presume so,
Yeah. You know, just I think it's important that we register concerns about the plans of the Ulster Bank. I think we've all been contacted by mainly about staff. There are real concerns about downsizing.
Yes.
I understand there will be quite a considerable amount of branches closing in Northern Ireland and the Republic. So those issues are of real concern to us.
Absolutely.
We've seen, you know, the knock-on effect that it's having within our high street. So we need to do what we can to lobby the Ulster Bank to make sure that it's kept to at least to a minimum, and that staff are properly treated, and the people that have given their service to the bank are treated properly for all the work that they've done. As I say, there are real concerns out there. We've been lobbied through emails, through correspondence.
Yes.
We passed it on to our various ministers. We're waiting a response, but I think we do welcome the fact that they are coming to address the committee, and the effort that you're making to have a joint committee, I think, is a good one.
Important too. Yes, okay, thanks for that, Gordon. Sorry, Phil, you want to come in on something?
Thanks, but just the figures announced this morning are greeted with a wave of negativity by the media as usual, but I think it's important to note that Ulster Bank actually made an operating profit last year if you exclude their historic losses that they had to write off. So the bank is still viable. You know, it's still making money, and I think that's a point that we need to be putting them whenever we engage them, that it is still a successful business, and that they need to continue their operation across the island of Ireland and support their customers and their staff that have been very loyal to them through a number of difficult periods.
And Chair, I heard the Chief Executive on this morning, he was saying that, just as Phil said, that they anticipate that the bank won't have any losses next year. But I certainly agree with my colleague Gordon here. Maybe we could look at a number of issues that we need to raise with them, because there are things not just about jobs, which is so about loss of jobs, but also things like what happens in rural areas if we close down a bank. You know, in terms of online banking, people don't have online banking, those sorts of issues. They're going to have an impact right across North Ireland.
We'll go through that before we meet them and agree on lines to take and lines to question them on. Thanks very much for that. Now we move to the next item, which is an inquiry into the Brossa Task Force. This is at page 127. Correspondence from the Committee of the Office of First Minister and Deputy First Minister regarding its inquiry into the Brossa Task Force. So, now, on this one, clearly in more recent times this has been impacting upon the work of the committee and indeed the ability to draw down information. So I think we should have an input into this, the practical outworkings, and to hear just, it'll be very helpful, I'm sure, to the workings of this committee. So if we can leave it to Jim here to establish a wee bit more detail around it and to see how or in what way we could make an input to this inquiry. Agreed?
Great, yep.
Next item at page 130 is a response from the Consumer Council to committee queries following the briefing on the 30th of January 2014. Just to remind members, the Consumer Council had agreed to provide the following examples of GB responses to consultation supporting the Consumer Council NI model. That's at page 130. Information on regulation regarding air travel for disabled people. That's at page 138. Briefing on the car insurance market, page 170. And a copy of the Stubbs report, page 181. The Consumer Council has also provided information on its personal current account manifesto, which is at page 237. Now, unless anybody has anything to comment any further, are we content to note?
Great. Yeah.
Just on 6.3, the air travel for disabled people, that was actually very impressive, I thought. Very good.
They've done a lot of work on that. Now, next item is sub-regional economic data, and that's at page 252, and it's a response from Dr. Bradley. Dr. John Bradley, forthright as ever. So, okay, so, with respect to the second, well, there you have Sir Humphrey in there in the middle of it. So, now, what do we want to do with this? Do we want to note it or share it with, share it further? Phil?
I have a general point about this whole work in economic data. I don't really think you do anything with John's response. I think you laugh at it, and I think he feels our pain.
Aye.
But in terms of the wider work we've done in economic data, I think there has been several excellent reports and research papers that we've been presented for, and I think it'd be very useful if the committee staff could centralise them all in one location for us, whether it's on the committee's website in the Assembly or whether it's in SharePoint. So can the committee staff manage that for us?
Good enough. Thank you. Next item, energy efficiency project at Addenbrooke's Hospital. Now, this is a response from the Department of Finance personnel to queries on potential opportunities within the public sector for energy efficiency projects. Now, while it's saying that a private firm set this up and it's a PFI operator, a private, and are we content to forward this response to the Green Investment Bank? And perhaps get their view or their take as to how they could identify opportunities here in the north.
Patrick, can we also send it to somebody like the Energy Saving Trust or Bryson or somebody like that, to get their assessment of the opportunities that are there within it?
Aye, that's good. Or what about the Carbon Trust too?
Aye, well.
Yep, we can share it with them and see just what their take is on these things, because they're the ones that could be identifying further opportunities as well. So, agreed then, we do that. The next item is page 2559, a response from the Department to committee queries and potential job losses regarding Teleperformance Newry. So I think we're content enough to note that one. According to the department, there aren't going to be any job losses. So if we could also share that had been raised initially, we could forward that to my colleague Dominic Bradley, who had raised the concerns with me in the first instance, please. Agreed then? Agreed. Next item, number 7, that's at page 260. This is the Assembly consent motion, the public bodies abolition of the National Consumer Council and transfer of the Office of Fair Trading's functions in relation to Estate Agents Order 2014. We have the Assembly consent motion. We also have the draft committee report, the Delhi response to committee queries, and there is one slight amendment I think maybe you wanted to introduce, Jim, there. On there.
Yes, Chair, just where it says at the top of the report, the word after Order 2014, it says bill, and it's just to remove that word bill, which is included in error.
So are members content with the draft report and for it to be published on the committee pages of the Assembly website and a link forwarded to all members? Agreed? Great, yeah. Now, next item is agenda item number 8, page 265, and this is following on from our stuff last week. The Consumer Rights Bill, we have a written briefing from the Consumer Council, and the Consumer Council has done the BIS consultation and a summary of consultation responses which include the Department's proposed post-consultation decision. Now, it's quite clear there that we had agreed to get this from the Consumer Council after our session last week. They clearly outlined their supportive of the bill and welcome the intention to simplify and clarify laws for consumers. So, content with the proposal of the legislative consent motion then?
Content enough with the proposals, Patsy, but I never had any problems with the content of the bill. What I wanted to be assured of was that it was the best possible piece of legislation and that there wasn't any glaring gaps within consumer legislation that could have been filled. But happy enough that if there are any gaps that the Assembly and the Executive can still bring forward legislation to fill those gaps.
That's grand, thanks Phil. Papers for the next item are in correspondence. That's starting at page 288. So the first item there I think has been dealt with. So, oh sorry, excuse me, jumped a bit here. Agenda item number 9, Electricity Policy Review, Part 3, Grid Connections, Terms of Reference. Now, papers for this item are 284, and included is the draft Terms of Reference for that. So, unless anybody has anything they particularly want to deal with at this point, if any comments.
A couple of points here, Patsy. Is there an urgency in getting these agreed, or could I deal with this in instead of holding back this meeting, could I deal with this in written form to Jim, and then we can discuss it in detail
That's
next week?
All right,
Maybe?
we can defer it to next week.
You in panic with this, Jim? No?
Absolutely not. But, Chair, did you want to mention the
Yes, there is.
timeline?
Yes, the timeline we're looking at, because of the pressures and constraints, we're probably looking at September before this could be done. You know?
All right, no, that's okay. But as long as I thought maybe we had to get this agreed maybe before the debate done.
Yeah, well,
part two, no.
fair any discussion on the terms of reference. Don't know how we'll get it done down Newry next week. We'll be under a bit of pressure next
Okay,
week.
no, well, I thought the panic might have been to get this agreed before the debate next week.
No.
Okay.
Okay, so correspondence, agenda item number 10, that's page 288. We have dealt with that one around the Committee for Finance and Personnel. So Jim, do you want to take us through the rest?
Sure. The second one then, Chair, is an invitation from the Assembly outreach to meet with members of the Economy Committee from the Parliament of Jordan on the 6th of March. Now that's Thursday. Thursday's meeting is in Newry, so this is at 11 o'clock, so unless any members are intending not to go to that meeting, members can tempt me to...
Not Wednesday, Jim?
Sorry?
Not Wednesday?
No,
Wednesday?
Well, the date I had, sorry, was the 6th of March.
I always have a Dell committee meeting that day.
This is Wednesday, the 6th of March.
Yeah.
So Wednesday, is it a Wednesday or a Thursday?
Wednesday is, I think possibly there was something come in afterwards to say that the date was wrong.
Actually, it is
Wednesday,
wrong.
the 5th of March.
The 6th?
Yeah.
Today, they put the wrong
Maybe
date.
the 5th of March. So if it is the 5th of March, our members content to...
Somebody maybe want to go along to that.
Will you
notify
yourself and Sam will be here on our committee, but
clarify that
other
date
members
and
will as
then,
well.
okay.
Is it in Jordan? No.
Is it in Jordan?
That's
Will
why.
somebody clarify the date and
That's
clarify
why
the
some of you are
members and then we go
going.
back to you?
Right.
Absolutely.
That's
Just
all right.
wondering, with Philip and Samuel there, they would go to Jordan, you
They
know.
wouldn't let me out of it again.
Right, okay. Right, Jim.
Correspondence from the Minister regarding the transfer of the function of Registrar of Northern Ireland Credit Unions, Industrial and Province Societies from DETI to the appropriate UK authority. If members are content to note that.
Note.
From the Chairperson Liaison Group regarding cancelled briefings and late papers. If members are content to consider a draft committee response at next week's meeting.
Great.
I would look at this and I think the issues have been largely resolved as far as the committee is concerned. Late papers is maybe one or two.
Well, the late papers, the only late papers that we seem to have is any correspondence with the DFM. It's not internally within the department.
Monitoring rounds haven't really improved.
That issue was addressed and it has a bit of improved. I met with the department on that.
No. Okay, so anyway, Jim, if you could draft up a response to that, please, just.
Okay. From the Committee for the Office of First Minister, Deputy First Minister regarding summary of the Joint Ministerial Committee meeting of the 2nd of December, so if members are content to note that.
Yeah.
From the Department of the Committee for Agriculture and Rural Development regarding the Rural Broadband Infrastructure Programme, members are content to note.
Yeah.
From Antrim Borough Council, inviting the committee to hold a meeting in Antrim Castle Gardens.
Noted.
Hardly get done this.
Noted. I would like to have you down Mid Ulster at some stage, so if we could mark that on the map.
Will that be after the North Down visit, yeah?
We'll be after it, Gordon.
We'll not go there.
We could be out of a job.
We've got Olympic science until 2.
We have a good swimming till too, right, Sam? You took the words out of my mouth.
Patrick, we plan on
Only Mickey
We'll be out of a
Mouse.
job at 6 o'clock tomorrow.
Okay, so we can maybe agree to add that to the list at some stage too. Right. Any other business then? No. Date, time and place of the next meeting is Thursday, the 6th of March in Newry Moore Enterprise Centre at 10 a.m. Okay, thanks very much, everybody. We covered a lot of ground.
Well
there
done,
today.
Chair, yeah.
Committee Room 30.